Today, I'd like to focus in on growing up here and taking vacations as a young boy to Yellowstone Park and to Missoula from the Bitterroot Valley.
Yeah,
You went by covered wagon to Yellowstone Park with your grandparents, is that right?
you're right.
Tell us about that trip.
Well, we took off with a wagon and a cow and chickens, and we took them along with us. And the old cow gave us milk, and we camped on the prairie over there, you know, and spent a day or two there resting up, and we had the cow and the horses and a covered wagon, and we spent 2 or 3 days there going through to the park. It took several days to go up the Big Hole Hill, because that was an awful hill to get the wagon up. It took several head of horses to pull it up over the hill. When we come off the Big Hole Hill, we'd have to hook a tree on the back and drag it to hold the wagon back. Of course, it had no brakes to hold it, and going down that steep hill and dragging these trees with the limbs and stuff on it would hold it back. And we drag it down the hill to the foot of the Big Old Hill. And then we went down in the valley and stopped at the battlefield where it is now, and camped there for a day or two. Then we hit the prairie, and it took several days to go through. Yeah, we're in the Big Hole now, going through by Wisdom, and out through there toward Dillon. We went that way to get to the park. And it was a long, we camped we wouldn't go but about, 3 or 4 miles a day, and then we'd camp with the horses and the cows and stop and stay a day or two and then go on. And we was all summer making that trip into the park and out through the park that way. But it took us all that time, and my mother had folks in Livingston. When we come out, we come by there and seen some of her folks. Oh. And then we come back through the Big Hole country.
Would you eat the chickens, or were they for eggs?
Well, we didn't really eat the chickens. We was getting eggs from them, you know, and had a crate or two to put them in, and when we was traveling, and they'd lay some eggs, and we'd have eggs along the way. I don't know, just something like we had to have everything with us to go, the cow, the milk, the mink, the milk.
Where did they ride?
Oh, I had a crate. We put it in the wagon, and they'd ride in there. Turn them out when we was camped, and they'd feed around for grasshoppers, I know. They know enough to go back in that crate, and that's the way we traveled. Well, it was all one summer going through the park.
And who was on the trip with you?
Well, my brother Dee was with me, and Walter, and Mom and Dad, and Grandpa, and Grandma was along.
What did you do for meat?
Well, always could kill a deer or something, you know, and have meat along. We always didn't take too much meat because you couldn't keep it. Right. We'd get chickens or something else if we could, and we never. There was antelope and stuff. You could get one of them, but we didn't kill nothing like that. Just like we used the chickens mostly, and and get smaller game, rabbits and stuff like that. And we didn't go out for any big stuff.
What did you do for entertainment on the trip?
Oh, we played games. We had games we played. We played horseshoe a lot, and Dad would get the horseshoes out. He was a pretty good player.
Any other dangers on your Yellowstone trip?
Well, not too much. There was grizzly bears. They had them, but they was in the feeding grounds. You could go down there and sit and watch them, but they stayed in the feeding grounds. They didn't bother the people. They stayed pretty well to themselves over there in the garbage deal.
Were you allowed to feed the grizzlies at that time?
No, we wasn't supposed to. No. No, they fed them in the feeding ground there. They didn't want them around camp or nothing because it's too dangerous. We was going down through the park one time, and Dee and I was in the back of the pickup. That's when I hit him with a can. We had fish in there, and he was after that, but we didn't know that. The two of us sitting there, I didn't want the bear in the pickup with us. The bear was climbing up over the end gate, and I was going to throw a can of canned stuff at him, knock him back so he'd get back down. And I done this, and Dee raised up, and I whacked him in the head and knocked him out.
When you were on the wagon trip,
Oh
where did you
yeah,
ride?
we had a cot in the back, a covered wagon, and we all had places to sleep.
You had cots in the wagon? that you
Yeah, a
slept in?
double one, one above the other, and that we doubled them up so we could get in the wagon, a bunch of us.
What sights did you see?
Well, we saw Old Faithful, and we saw the park ain't like it used to be. Old Faithful was every hour or so would go off. And then the terrace down there toward Gardner, they're all practically gone anymore. They don't do that. There's gorgeous in there. You go around, there'd be big holes there, and the water rolling out of them, and you could see it. Trails through where you walk, and the park was wonderful then, but it ain't like that anymore. I can still remember seeing that out there with the cows and the chickens and out in the prairie, and we was camped there for January a month, I think. It seemed like a month, and everything was just gorgeous. We played and had games and spent a lot of time there for a month.
What sounds would you hear on that prairie?
Chickens, or you would hear them, and the coyotes, lots of coyotes. Oh, you'd hear the horses, and you'd hear the wagon and stuff, different things,
So what were the roads like in the wagon trip?
Oh, muddy, gravelly roads. I tell you, it was terrible.
When you were on your covered wagon trip, did you ride in the wagon the whole time?
Oh, we walked a lot, and we didn't ride any horses. We didn't have that many horses. We just had a team or two, and no saddle horses at all. We walked, and most of the time we walked, because we wouldn't go very far one day at a time. We'd just go a mile or two, and then stop and camp.
Was that fun for you, or was that tiring?
No, it was lots of fun. We had lots of fun.
Yeah.
We'd see new things all the time.
How was it that you could get away from the ranch that long?
Well, we had a guy that stayed at the ranch, and a guy that always was there.
Do you want to tell us about your Model T trip out to Missoula for the fair?
Well, we was a week of going down. I know that. We camped every little bit down the road here because Old Model T wouldn't make such hard, little old solid tires on it, and seemed like, and brass radiators and all this, and maybe it'd run for a while, and then we'd have to fool with it and get it to going. And we'd be a week of going down to Missoula, you know. Just the old road was bad, and it went down the east side of the highway then, and down by Florence.
What was at the fair for you to do?
Well, they had horse races, you know, and that was mostly it, was the horse racing. A few cattle bronc riders, and there were some good cowboys that rode steers and you know, a regular rodeo, and they bring in the wild stuff as they come off the ranchers, and you never know what you're going to see.
Were there games at the fair to play?
Games?
At the fair?
Well, yes. The fair was a lot different than they are now. You know, you went around and they entertained you different things a lot better than they do. You have to pay to get in anything anymore. And everything was free. It was all for anybody to come, you know. Of course, it wasn't too big a fair like they have now, but always a clown out there. My boy Rock was a clown for a long time in the fair. He'd go to the fair and be a clown.
What food could you eat at the fair?
What food? Oh, I don't know. They cooked different stuff, old-time stuff. Tater salads and vegetables and stuff like that. No fancy stuff at all. Just had the regular old meal that you eat at home. Yeah, they had cookies and cake and stuff like that people could bake and bring in. But there wasn't no candies and stuff much at all.
What's your advice to families today? You know, families are so busy. It's hard to find time to take vacations. It's hard to have money to take vacations.
And we used to go out where the kids could play and go up the river and camp and be there a week, and they'd play in creeks and all over the country. And we didn't have to pay no money to really have entertainment. We went to Horse Creek a lot, over there at the hot springs. We went down there when there's no road, you know. We went down the ridge with horses to the hot springs, and we camped there for a week there by the springs, and the kids would play, and we'd play in that hot water, and it was just a square place with logs around it at that time. We put some logs around it. There wasn't no building there like there is now. It was just a square hole of water. You go in there and play in it, and then there's a hole below full of hot water. But
and were there a lot of other people there?
Nobody there then, you know. We'd be there by ourselves.
So have you gotten back to Boulder Lake over the summer?
I hope to.
Yeah, you still hope to. You didn't get there this summer?
I hope I can get there. I'll get Mike's horses and go up there. I go up the lake if I get a chance. I took Mom up there when she was 78. Wow. Yeah.
By horseback?
Yeah, I got her picture with her on the horse.
Wow.
Yeah, she was up there at the lake on the horse.
Well, Roy, it's always great to visit with you and hear about your life here.
I had a wonderful life.
Yes. What does your hat say today?
Oh, that comes from Iowa. the lady that was here, they was out here visiting me, an aunt of mine, and they always send me a hat or a cap. She just sent this the other day.
It's new.
Mm-hmm.
Roy Shook, beloved legend of Bitterroot Valley. That's an honor. That's nice.